I got all I want, and I got all I need, and I got everything. I got you and me.
Marriage is the most important, most beneficial, most worthwhile, and most difficult relationship possible. Throughout my time as a counselor, I've run into a lot of individuals who are looking for marriage. They're in search of the one. They want a deep and meaningful relationship. And in fact, it's very painful for them that they have not found the person that they're going to spend, hopefully, the rest of their life with. There's a lot of stress involved. There's a lot of waiting involved. There's a lot of trying and failing involved. It's a sad kind of journey, and no one knows when it's going to end. No one knows when they're going to find someone of value who they can value and who will value them. I enjoy sitting with these kinds of clients because as they kind of explore themselves over the course of the therapeutic relationship, hopefully they're getting some clarity, right? Hopefully they're pursuing some health themselves and actually addressing some of the issues that would come up in their future relationships in counseling as they go. The conversations are really enjoyable, but we oftentimes kind of land on this same spot, which is, where am I supposed to go in order to find reasonable, healthy people to date? Someone that is willing to pursue me, to get to know me, to engage in healthy conversations, healthy friendship, healthy dating. Where do I go to find those people? And as we talk through it and walk through the options, we don't ever really get anywhere. We always kind of find ourselves at a dead end. Oftentimes things like, I'm sick of the apps are coming up. Oftentimes things like, I'm not involved in any sorts of groups that would open up doors for healthy dating. Nobody comes to mind. I've asked my friends, I've asked all these people, or I've talked to different people, different groups about this problem that I'm having. And oftentimes there is this sentiment around, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Is there something broken about me? Or is there a systemic issue? So today I wanted to talk a little bit about dating and the current dating system and how it's failing tons and tons of young people. From my small sample size, I feel as though the current state of dating is really sad, really difficult, and the people that I'm running into that are struggling to find people feel as though they don't have any place to go. In the past, there were some things that made dating a little different, right? Like dating was more of a local thing. You couldn't date somebody that you didn't know existed, 50 miles down the road, because you had no contact or way of contacting them unless you traveled. And so there was a lot of local kind of restrictions on dating. So the lack of local restrictions, I think, plays a role in the system that we've got. In previous generations, religiosity, spirituality, kind of a shared value around that, I think would either kind of draw people together because of a shared value or draw people together because of a lack of shared value. And now I feel like there's less of that. There's just less of that going on. There's more of maybe of an indifference to religiosity, to spirituality, to pursuing a relationship with God. And if two people are both mutually kind of on the same page with pursuing a relationship with God, it oftentimes kind of aligns up some of the other questions in life, and especially around marriage, because marriage as an entity is a very specific thing, right? Like a marriage is a union. It's a forever union between a man and a woman. It's a forever union between a man and a woman that was designed in a specific way as kind of a picture of mutual submission and sacrifice, of oneness that requires a lot of humility, that requires a lot of you. And so I think the understanding of what a marriage is, if you don't understand where marriage comes from, how it was designed and how it works, it's very difficult to find yourself a marriage. It makes me wonder if we're having different kinds of conversations, right? Our conversations may not be grounded in religiosity or values. They're not necessarily grounded in who is local and who is in my specific kind of geographic area. The conversations have changed, and I think it's making it more difficult for people to find partners. The sexual revolution, I think, has also played a very large role in decreasing male participation in pursuing marriage, as well as increasing harm toward female participation in marriage. Basically, because of the exposure currently to sexual things, I believe that there's a strong desensitization for men entering into marriage. Young men are becoming exposed earlier and earlier to pornographic images, which we know impacts their brain in a significant way. And it also impacts their perception of what sexuality is, of bodies, and of sexual expression and normalcy, and maybe like healthy, respectful kind of sexual engagement. And when you have access to all of those like images and videos and things of that sort, the way that you engage with the real, right, a real woman, is changed by your brain's exposure to what is not real, right? What is pornographic. And because the younger generation, or this upcoming generation, has been exposed at such a young age, the way that that's going to impact their brain is obviously going to become more significant, because the development of the brain early on, and like when the intersection of that development is occurring with the intersection of the exposure. And I think that's been going on for quite some time. So it's impacted the way that young men approach sexuality within themselves, how they think about it, how they get, if we can use that, how they get sexuality into their systems. Because it's not a long-term game plan of pursuing a young woman and dating and courting and engaging over time and, befriending and connecting and romance. Like there isn't a whole lot of work involved in exposing yourself to images, and therefore there's a level of access that deters one's self from working hard at gaining access to sexual connection via real relationship. So I think that's impacting the conversations. I think it's impacting the way that people are speaking to one another. I hear these really interesting stories about sexual conversations that are happening very young. I've got a few different individuals and instances that have occurred over the course of the last, short period of time surrounding exposure to different kinds of sexual conversations. And the age range is so young. It's so small. Like, these are just very young people who are being exposed, and it's changing their brains and their minds and the way that those things are kind of thought through, and their understanding of what this stuff is, right? It kind of normalizes it in a not great way. It exposes instead of like normalizing the development and creating helpful dialogue, conversation, connecting it to the reality of relationship. Then all of a sudden now those conversations have shifted and changed, and it's not for the better. It's not benefiting people in their pursuit of marriage to be exposed in such an early developmental period. Now, obviously, those people aren't getting married, but it's setting the stage for how they think about themselves, how they think about romance, how they think about relationships, and ultimately how all of the people around them are approaching those topics on an ongoing basis, moving toward more adult relationships. Disconnecting sexuality from marriage was a huge mistake. And the proof is in the pudding in that, where we're seeing such a crazy, there's this wave, right, of involuntary celibacy. And I think so much of that comes from these ideas surrounding sexuality, the ideas around like building friendship and connection, being disconnected from the reality of romance and sexual connection. So we're having all of these different kinds of conversations. They've shifted. The kinds of types of conversations that people are having now are very different, based on a disconnection from locality or geography, a disconnection from religiosity, a disconnection from sexual like conservation, kind of the idea of the abstinence idea, and the idea of connecting sexuality to marriage always kept it protected both marriage and sexuality. And so now that those things aren't connected, and those conversations aren't connected, and those kind of images in people's brains aren't connected, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, slowly over time, that's changed the way that those conversations are playing out. So now, okay, so then you add in this idea of social media. So social media comes in, and it further disconnects the idea of a person from a physical, spirit, mind, body person. Okay. So instead of going and talking to a person and either connecting with them or not connecting with them, either having a great conversation or not, either enjoying yourself or not, you're creating all of these faux connections, sharing text, right? Like written word on a screen that's not good for you anyways. Not only that, but you're also exposed to all of these like images and motivational modifiers. So the dopamine involved in the use of the phone, the dopamine that you're getting on the Instagram, and the dopamine you're getting on the Facebook, and the likes and the comments or the lack thereof, and the trolling and the sexual images that come up on these different social media platforms. We know that young girls, right, are being extremely impacted by seeing the images on Instagram and these other platforms. It's leading to huge amounts of depression, and it's also leading to questions about bodies and questions about sexuality and questions about worth and questions about value, leading to anxiety, suicide, depression, all sorts of crazy stuff. And so those exposures, I think, also are leading to different conversations around marriage. So social media is impacting the way that those conversations are going. It depersonalizes the interaction. So porn depersonalizes, a lack of local geographic kind of area depersonalizes, a lack of religiosity or value or like kind of moral understanding of this is a person, so they have value. It's just an inherent thing. Obviously these things aren't gone, but like they've decreased, if we can say that. So we're having all these different kinds of conversations and everything is depersonalized. And so then we're having a struggle to connect with people. Yeah. In the past, I think courtship, there was an air of respect. I'm not sure that there's an air of respect in the communication. There's so much on apps that is sexualized and sexualized really early. And it really takes away one's ability to develop the foundational building blocks that are necessary in order for a relationship to last. Jumping into sexuality early on in a relationship. Obviously, during the honeymoon phase, there's an increase in tension and connection and desire and all of those things, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a different kind of conversation to jump into sexuality without any kind of relationship versus sexual tension and desire building as one builds a relationship and then consummated in a marriage, right? Consummated, finished in that marriage, right? Now that our relationship is committed, now that it's full, now that it's grown up, now that it's matured, now we give kind of this fullness of self in the consummation rather than texting sexual things to complete strangers on applications, hoping to make a one-time quick dopaminergic thing, right? It goes along really well with social media and kind of this gratification system that is always playing on us. It goes really well with that. But it doesn't go well for long-term dating, long-term relationship building. If dating is relationship building and it's not just quick and easy sexual connection, then all of a sudden it becomes so cheap. All the communication becomes really cheap. The words don't really mean a whole lot. You can say something awful to someone and it doesn't really matter to you. Not only that, but at this point, it's probably been done so often to them that there's a desensitization that like, I shouldn't be talked to that way or treated that way in a relational context versus like, oh, this is just normal. This is just how people my age speak, or this is just how people interact. And I don't think that that's true. Although the numbers borne out in your life or someone that you know's life very well may disagree with that or may reflect something different. So we're having these different kinds of conversations and the nature of the conversations has changed and the vehicle or medium that the conversations are occurring in is different. The sexuality is disconnected from the value of a person and a consummation or like a completion of relationship to like, how much can I get as early as I can possibly get it, which just kind of seems to be like the MO for some people online. And I think that the apps are kind of inundated or flooded with that kind of mentality. And so it makes the apps a really, really unruly place to pursue relationship or relational connection. When I think about dating in 2026, I think about how if you're going to be dating, you need to know that you are valuable. kind of sounds a little cliche, but let me kind of clarify. If you don't know you're valuable and you don't treat yourself like you are someone of value, then the people that you surround yourself with, both friendship and romantically, are also going to treat you kind of like how you treat yourself, which is not like a person of value. So one of the things that is really important in the individual system, not just like the broad cultural relational dating system, but the individual system, is that you need to know that you are a person of value so that when you go out, and have these interactions or are reached out to online, you're able to kind of differentiate interactions between someone who values you as an individual versus someone who is trolling or just online, not going to create the value that you need in the relational context, not going to lead to long-term kind of committed relational development. So what do we need? I mean, we need that value piece of it, right? But like ultimately, what do you need in order for this to work? In order for dating to work in 2026, what do you need? I think there are 3 things that I think that people need. And I don't know where they're going to get them, but I can create problems and not have any solutions. So need number 1, I think people need a space to practice. I think people are out of practice engaging in real live conversations, asking good questions, finding out about other people, being curious, all of those things. So that's number 1. I think people need a space to practice these things and to like get better at it, right? You might not be great at approaching a girl. You may not be great at, having a conversation with a boy. Boys and girls are very different things, right? Like having a conversation with my male friends is very different than having a conversation with my wife. Having a conversation with my mother is very different than a conversation with my mentors. They're different things. So like the skills that you have talking with the boys online and, doing all the joking around and the teasing and the poking and all of those things, it should be different than the way that you're speaking with someone of the opposite sex, right? If you want to develop friendship, if you want to develop relationship that can lead into something longer, something better, important, beneficial, worthwhile, difficult, right? This marriage idea, you need to start having conversations, right? You need to start practicing your interactions with these different kinds of people, because you're going to use that skill over and over and over and over again 1,000,000 times over the course of a relationship, of a relationship or of a marriage. So number 1, we need a space to practice. Number 2, we need a space for conversation. We need a space for conversation. We need practice. We need conversation. And the idea of conversation is like, how do we get people live and like talking to one another outside of like speed dating or the online stuff? So I think people need spaces away from phones in order to practice interacting and connecting and engaging with others. I think we need a space for conversation where people can practice and engage and talk with and get to know other people. And then ultimately, I think we need a space for friendship. And the friendship is actually the key ingredient for marital success, relational success. If marriage is really the most important, most beneficial, most worthwhile, and most difficult relationship possible, right? If it's all of those things, and friendship is the key ingredient that makes it last, that makes it important, that makes it beneficial and worthwhile, we desperately need a space for people to develop friendship. And that's why we need to practice, and that's why we need these conversations. It's so that we can lead into friendship. If you can be a really good friend, you can serve, you can support, you can care, you can empathize, you can listen, you can express compassion, you can see a need, fill a need, without, needing anything in return. If we develop a rhythm where we can develop friendships, then marriages come up as a result of really strong, good, healthy friendships. And the marital friendship is the thing that the Gottmans talk about a lot, making the biggest difference in long-term success in relationships. So we need education around marriage and what it is. This podcast, reading a Gottman book, going on the tube, something, whatever you want to do to kind of educate yourself. I would highly suggest reading a book about it. Probably there's quite a few. We need a renewed understanding of what makes relationships work. And ultimately, there's a phenomenal model out there that I really like and I use often in my practice. It's called the RAM model. It's called the Relationship Attachment Model, or RAM model, and it was developed by Dr. John Van Epp. John Van Epp, that's EPP. So this model, basically, if you look it up online, you're going to see these bars, right? And there's 5 different categories for the relationship attachment model. The first bar on the far left is the knowing. Second bar is trusting. Third bar is relying. Fourth bar is committing, and the fifth bar is touching. Now, I have like a board, right, that I'm working with that controls the sound for the different microphones and stuff. There's only one that's plugged in because it's just me. But I can kind of like up and down these slides, right? Maybe you could hear it. Those slides is kind of what each of these categories are, left to right. They're on a slide, right? We could even like put it a number on, like 1 to 10, right? So the idea of the model, you've got these 5 slides, these 5 different categories. The idea of the model is the category on the left needs to be always superior, or needs to be higher than, essentially, any category on the right. So if a category is left, it needs to be higher. So even if it's like smack dab in the middle, right in the middle is the rely category. That rely category needs to be higher than the slide to the right and lower than the slide to the left. So as you go left, those slides needs to be higher. Okay, so how does that work practically, right? So we should know people more so than we trust them. The more you know someone, the more that trust can develop, right? But you should never trust someone more than you know them. And if you do trust someone more than you know them, all of a sudden we've created kind of a dangerous situation. You're trusting someone that you don't know. So no trust, rely is the third category, right? So we should never rely on someone more than we trust them, more than we know them. And so relying on someone is really important in a relationship. If this person is not reliable, if they're proving unreliable over time, they're probably not in a place for engaging in long-term, healthy, successful relationship. So we've got know, the first slide. Get to know somebody. That's where these practices, these conversations, friendship develops. As you get to know someone, you want to trust. You want to build trust, right? You want to trust them over time. Actually, Henry Cloud has a really great book on trust if you're interested in that. Third slide, rely. The more that you trust them, the more that you can begin to rely on them. And the more they should prove themselves reliable. The more they do that, the more that you can reasonably commit to them. So that's the fourth slide. So we're building our knowledge. We're building this idea of trust within the relationship. We're building reliance. I'm relying on you. The more that you prove reliable, the more I'm committed to us in our relationship. And then as we are committed, then touch, connection, affection, those kinds of things can kind of bloom out of the commitment. But with no commitment and high touch, that's a dangerous relationship. It's not a healthy, successful, long-term, sustainable kind of system for yourself. With really high commitment but low trust, again, dangerous. with a really high like I'm really relying on you, but I don't really know you, danger, right? All of a sudden, something is wrong in the system. It's not working the way that it should. So know them, build trust, show reliability, rely on them, commit to them, and grow in your affectionate love and connection with them over time. When you get any of the slides out of order, you create harm to yourself and to the relationship. It doesn't mean that like you can't recover or you can't learn from mistakes, right? We've all made relational mistakes, and we will all continue to make relational mistakes. So the model is not a punitive tool. It's not like a tool like you're doing it all wrong. It's more of a tool that says, hey, when you are engaging in these really important relationships, like the most important, the most beneficial, the most worthwhile kind of relationship, make sure that you're getting some of these things in order, because you're honoring what the marriage is when you're doing that, right? You're putting these things in order, you're setting yourself up for success, and you're also going to protect yourself from a lot of harm in relationships. So within this model, and just like practically speaking, sleeping together from a dating perspective within like 6 months of getting to know one another is probably just a bad idea, scientifically, personally, value-wise. If you want to throw morally on there, mentally, it's not a great idea. There's so many different like ways that sleeping together impacts your brains and your chemicals and your honeymoon system, and you're going to want to get to know. You're going to want to get to trust. You're going to want to rely. You're going to want to be committed to, and both ways, before we're jumping into being sexual or connected in that way. And so much of that will protect you from harm and from kind of future patterns continuing to crop up where you continuously find yourself hurt or whatnot in the area of dating and relationships. So understanding that model, organizing in, this kind of relational system is going to help to, it provides, this is like an educational kind of thing. It provides an understanding of what marriage is, and it helps people to orient themselves in their relationship as they go. It also helps them to understand where kind of the harm or the hurt came into their relationships in the past. If you can understand, I was really committed to that person, but they really weren't reliable at all. I was really trusting that person, but I didn't know them. And so I proved that they weren't trustworthy, but I had already jumped into trusting so high. And because I didn't know them, they were able to I was able to be in this relationship for a long period of time, or even a short period of time, without really knowing them, even though I trusted them or I relied on them or I was committed to them, or I was kind of giving them parts of me that are now, right, like just hurt, wounded, broken. And a lot of that I think is going on right now in the culture of the dating system. So there are two systems that we talked about, right? So two systems. One of them is the individual dating system, the individual self, like you within the dating structure. And then there's a cultural dating system, right? So the cultural dating system, it's got a lot of problems. It's got a lot of needs. There's a lot of things kind of fighting against it. And it needs these kind of practice, conversation, friendship. It needs a space for that. The individual dating system, we talked about how like developing a sense of value in yourself, treating yourself like someone who you value. That's a Jordan Peterson in his book, The 12 Rules for Life. He talks about valuing yourself or treating yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of. So this would be more of like treating yourself or valuing yourself, building value within yourself, seeing yourself as someone of value, putting a lot of value into yourself and seeing that value and understanding, right? Like really knowing that, not in like a puffed up or prideful way. Value isn't necessarily like I'm super great and I'm all that. It's more of I am a valuable person and I have valuable likes and valuable dislikes. I have valuable strengths. I have valuable weaknesses. I bring value to people. I bring value to places. I bring value to pets. I bring value to a workplace. I'm valuable because I'm a daughter, or I'm a son, or I'm a coworker, or I'm a mentee, or I'm a mentor. There's lots of different kind of ways of building value, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how to build more value in the future. You are worth protecting. You're worth setting up a healthy relationship system. And so if you walk into a relationship knowing your value and knowing your worth, and then someone treats you really poorly, that's on them. You're not less than. You're able to extricate yourself from that situation, from that relationship. As you get to know them and they prove to be not trustworthy, you have enough value to walk away. So you may get to know somebody, but not value yourself, and then be treated really poorly and trust someone or rely on someone or commit to someone, or even be affectionate with someone. That value system is important to kind of underpin the relationship attachment model. So you need that kind of values and worth in your individual system before you are able to apply it then in your dating system. In your individual dating system, the other couple of things that I was thinking about was like if you're struggling with addiction, or if you're often utilizing either social media or pornographic sites, you're undermining your ability to create healthy, successful relationships long term. And so that should be something that is taken seriously and addressed like regularly. There are some great books out there, doing some research, reading a book, trying to find some freedom from kind of the trap and the addiction of sexual immorality and porn use and things of that nature. All of those things do get brought into the marriage. None of that goes away just because you get married, and nor is sex something that is like free in marriage. It's something that is work. It's something that is lovely and wonderful and beautiful, but it's also something that like it's not porn, and it's not videos, and it's not Instagram, and it's none of those things. It's actually way more. It's more beautiful. It's more meaningful. It's more real. It's more worthwhile. And so your current sexual practices should be looked at as you're kind of looking at an individual dating system. Treating yourself with value, treating marriage with value means looking at your practices and like understanding what those things lead to. And if you're stuck in that and you're going to continue to utilize that, you're going to continue to struggle with that. There's no point in marriage where it's just like, oh, now that I'm married, I'm all the way done with that. If you're not putting in the work. And so it is work, and it's normal to be stuck or trapped or, struggling in that area, but taking it seriously and seeking to understand kind of what's keeping you stuck in that is going to be an important part of breaking free and developing a healthy relational dating system. And then finally, the word humility came into play. The last couple of episodes, we talked a little bit about sacrifice and humility. And I think humility is actually a really important part of an individual dating system, where like you are coming in a humble fashion. If the person that you're dating or you yourself are struggling in that area, I think that area could be a good place to look at, a good place to reflect on, a good place to kind of understand yourself on a deeper level, so that you're not that lack of humility, right, is oftentimes leads to problems and struggles. And so humility is another thing in the individual dating system that I think would be a really healthy thing to practice. Practice serving others, practice volunteering, practice seeing, others, as valuable, practicing listening, all of those good things. And then obviously we talked a little bit about the cultural dating system. We need a space for practice. We need a space for conversations, and we need a space to develop friendship. I do actually have ideas around what that space might look like and how it might kind of get facilitated. I've talked to Becca about it a little bit, and like to see if that was something that would fit on our plate. I don't know if it fits on our plate right now, but if you're interested in those kinds of conversations, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for listening. We all really appreciate you guys sticking with us and continuing to listen to our Amateur Hour podcast. If you got this far, please go onto the Apple and leave a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Throw it on Spotify. You can go on our YouTube. I think we have a YouTube. It's out there. And if you can find it, that would be really cool. There is a link to the YouTube in the description. There's a bunch of different book suggestions in the description, as well as other helpful things. So feel free to reach out. This is the end.
And I got all I need.